had my whole life taken away from me.
George Riley traveled from Sacramento to Washington, D.C. to attend then-President Trump's January 6th rally. He then is a U.S. Army veteran and says he heard Capitol Police deploying explosives.
When I heard the explosives, I ran up into the Capitol building.
He took photos of the scene. Riley spent 14 months behind bars altogether as part of a plea agreement in which he admitted to entering the Capitol as federal prosecutors dropped additional charges against.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you could rewind the clock?
No, absolutely not. I stood up for what I believe in, and I will never apologize for standing up for what I believe in. I was persecuted because I support Donald Trump, not because I did anything wrong. I was a political prisoner, not a criminal. I was a POW in my own country.
And you understand
To happen, because the whole reason I went in was because one of them was throwing concussion grenades at people who were peaceful protesters.
Reasons why I pled guilty, as I've expressed. There was never a chance to receive a fair trial in D.C.
So
Never.
you pled guilty because you think that you wouldn't have gotten a fair trial?
I know I wouldn't have gotten a fair trial. In fact, if we review the cases leading up to my guilty plea, you notice that everybody that was taking their case to trial was being found guilty on all charges. And the government had told me that if I went to trial and I was found guilty of all charges, my crime would not only be a crime of violence, but I would be looking at a sentencing guideline between 17 and 22 years. Last 16 months in federal prison in Ohio, and 8 months in the DC jail, which was horrible conditions. 2 years on home confinement here in Amherst, New York.
My husband and I both. The FBI came in force. There was probably 20 or 30 agents, a SWAT team, an armored vehicle with a battering ram. There's all these FBIs with guns pointed at me, red dots on my chest.
But what I saw was we were standing in the crowd on the mall side of the Capitol when a gunshot went off and a guy got hit in the face about 50 feet from us, and we so close that our eyes were watering, and we smelled the pepper gas and the wind was blowing right in our direction. Absolutely. By pleading out to the lesser of the misdemeanors, we could face 0 to 1 year in jail and up to $100,000 each fine.
What I call warpath was to see all of us brought to justice to the fullest extent of the law, although the things that happened that day aren't exactly how the media made it seem to be, and how there was a lot of rhetoric that doesn't portray what actually happened if you were there. Escalation on the side of the Capitol Police. They were not allowing us to peacefully protest, and in fact were being very aggressive, hitting women, children, elderly, throwing flashbangs in the crowd, spraying us with OC spray, using their batons to hit people that were just peacefully protesting there at the Capitol that day, which led to an explosion of aggression.
That are ironically capable of causing death on a peaceful, non-violent crowd of protesters who are singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy" on January 6th.
I'm right behind you. No! Don't shoot scat.
These are some of the weapons police fired on non-violent protesters as the Capitol grounds were being cleared.
Right in that corner, they did. Here, ring one more down.
We are unable to see what these officers are firing at. However, we do hear the crowd instantly roar when they are repeatedly hit with munitions capable of causing death.
This crew right here.
It turns out the crowd is only singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
When I opened a door, we had two agents turn their guns right at me. And all I could say, because my dog was, freaking out, was, "Please don't shoot my dog."
And they shoved me. That's when I asked an officer to help me get out because they had already trampled on me on the steps. They cut my knee, broke my glasses, stepped on my head, pulled out my shoulder. So I asked him to take me out, and he did. And that's what I got in trouble for.
The first charge is entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly or disruptive conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in any Capitol building. Yes, we've pled guilty to that.
And why did you do that?
We felt very highly compelled by the situation, as did a lot of other J6ers. Just a lot of pressure to take a charge, because if we didn't, there is what they call a penalty for that in the court. A gunshot went off and a guy got hit in the face about 50 feet from us, and we so close that our eyes were watering, and we smelled the pepper gas, and the wind was blowing right in our direction. When that happened, I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? Then all of a sudden, a bunch of flashbangs went off. So people were getting shot, hit with munitions from the police, but there was nobody confronting them. And what I saw was something that was illegal. We were there to exercise our free speech, and we have the right to voice our concern over especially something as egregious as what we believed was happening. We needed to have a strong voice to our government, which we have the right to do. We have the right to free speech. So we exercised our right of free speech. All kinds of proof, video proof, that there were federal agents in the building dressed as Trump supporters before it even opened.
So would you do it all over again?
100% yes. And I asked my wife that same question, and she would say yes too. We would do it all over again. Big spotlight. This is the FBI. Come out with your hands up. You know, they're 20 feet from each neighbor. Driveway full of SWAT vehicles. We guessed that there was about 40 people total that came to arrest us. My head blown off, but when I got out there, 4 M4s about this far from my head. Fully kitted, knee pads, shoulder pads, you name it, everything they had. Lots of rounds, laser, night.
So the guns trained on you.
Monty. Guns trained on me. So
I was unjustly arrested, I was unjustly prosecuted, and unjustly convicted. All of that needs to be overturned.
Kelly is a January 6ther who stormed the Capitol on that infamous day 4 years ago. He barged through barriers, broke out a window, and pushed down a Capitol police officer. For all of that, President Trump pardoned him. But a judge ruled that pardon would not extend to his other crime, plotting to kill the FBI agents who were investigating him.
A new pardon, or have the Department of Justice bring the wrongdoers to justice in my case, or investigate the U.S. attorneys and just have people above the Eastern District of Tennessee look into this.
He says video shown in court shows he was pushed from behind into a police officer twice, and that led to the assault on an officer charge against him.
So I get pushed back into the police officer. I've got my hands up now, more of a defensive thing. I'm in a mob of people and a police line right in front of me. And that's what landed me in prison.
Officer, is that you?
Yeah.
Did you shove that police officer?
I shoved a shield, yes.
Do you feel or show remorse for that day?
For what I did that day? No, I protected innocent men and women that day.
His punishment, 2 stints behind bars, totaling nearly 2 years.
This is what kept me going when I was sitting in solitary for months on end.
A sentence that was cut short after a pardon from President Donald Trump.
Prison.
The D.C. jail is one of the worst facilities in the nation.
What do you mean?
They deprived us of every single constitutional right we have. They would throw me in solitary confinement regularly for complaining about these things. They denied us basic hygiene. They would deny us food for up to 5 days. Right there in Minnesota supporting that, I voted for Obama. I was on the left, so I didn't leave the left left me.
What do you mean by that?
Y'all went too extreme.
Who's y'all?
The left, the media, the politicians, the crazy stuff that's going on in our schools. The left let the far left control the narrative, and that's why Trump is back in office. for mine and 1,600 other people to have their due process just completely disregarded.
They're walking around. There was a big, huge crowd. I couldn't get through because of my stitches. It'd be too dangerous for me.
They're saying this is our building. Hold on, Tammy, it might get crazy.
And so I just walked around and people started saying that Trump was going to be at the Capitol. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll get a chance to meet him up there and I'll be there first so I could record him, you know.
They're pushing me.
And then I got up front and there was a barrier and there's police officers. And then they're talking, and then within a minute, he starts pushing on the gate and pushing the officers, everybody. And I fell, and the police officers,
I gotta get out.
They pulled me out of the crowd and put me behind them. So they saved my life that day. And I just ran to another officer.
I had to get out of that crowd.
Jail. You're going to federal prison for 60 days. That's a big deal.
It's going to be hard.
Because you wanted to shoot video.
Because I wanted to shoot video.
Inside the Capitol building, you know, it was a peaceful process. I never saw anything, you know, anything that constituted any kind of a riot.
Standing on the railing of the Capitol steps, holding a sign that says, "Save the Republic." FBI documents and photos also show Mateer walking throughout the Capitol building for around 30 minutes. His girlfriend Cher in North Knoxville.
There was a bunch of just FBI guys, and it just, like, I'm looking around saying, oh my God, this is all because he was in the Capitol on January 6th. It was
Cliff was arrested, then released, but he now has a long journey through the court system ahead of him.
The 21-year-old is not political, only hopped in the car with her uncle, William Mary, when invited.
It wasn't out of a desire to take part in any political rally. It was to go see the Capitol. I mean, she had plans to see the Smithsonian, to see the Lincoln Memorial.
He also defends Nicholas Reimler from Cedar Hill, seen walking the halls of the Capitol, swathed in a Trump flag.
Did he put hands on anyone?
No.
Did he break anything?
No.
The intrusion, Reimler writing, LOL, what's going on? Corleger said he was more bewildered that it came to this.
Everyone involved.
Each local defendant faces prison time, something Corleger says he's hoping.
How you remember it?
Well, I remember it being a lot different than the mockingbirds in the media have spun it, that's for sure. The chaos and the violence that took place outside the building that day was largely provoked, as far as I remember, by tear gas, concussion grenades, and rubber bullets being shot into a peaceful crowd. It was after all that all hell broke loose. That usually gets forgotten. I think that the whole thing has just been mischaracterized in so many ways, that myself included. I mean, people think I'm an insurrectionist or a Republican. I'm a libertarian. You know, there's so much distortion because of the media. You know, one of the things I like to say is you don't realize how distorted the media lens actually is until you see your own reflection in it. And the government demonized me. They made me social pariah. They attached things like QAnon, conspiracy theorist, white supremacist, insurrectionist, racist, homophobe, terrorist. They attached all those labels to my image. And then they imprisoned me for 27 months, 10 and a half in solitary confinement. Well, because I'm a better man because of what I went through. Do you regret things that are hard that you go through but make you a better human being? No, because they made you a better human being. And in all honesty, if you think of my lack of presence there on January 6th, then what you'll find is that January 6th narrative no longer has an Achilles heel. So I was the Achilles heel of the January 6th narrative because the media made me one, because they lied. They lied en masse to billions of people, and then it came back to bite them in the ass.
Had any trouble with the law, never been in any kind of trouble. And then they took us off of the house or the monitors after a few weeks. And we were on trial with 4 other people we didn't even know. But it was awful because you had to just basically sit there and listen to the prosecution make you out to be like you're some terrible person who's done something terribly wrong. And my husband didn't even go into the Capitol. I went in to help. I was a scuba medic, and so I had medical experience, and we helped people, we left, helped people get out, and that was the end of that. And I didn't really think, like, they let us in. The officers didn't say, no, you can't come in here. We didn't hurt anybody. I didn't do any damage. I didn't do anything. It's a really weird, bizarre thing. But then didn't think we'd done anything really wrong, and so then the FBI shows up, charged with everything I was charged with, which was 5 felonies and a misdemeanor. And my husband had been charged felonies and 2 misdemeanors, but he was only found guilty of 2 things, a felony and a misdemeanor. The prosecutor saying about me, she had this, distinguished career, and all of a sudden she became radicalized, and she's a domestic terrorist, and she's a danger to society. She should be locked up. And, wow, this is just, he sentenced me to a year of house arrest and 250 hours of community service. And I had to pay $1,000 restitution, I think $575 of court costs. And then my husband was sentenced to 6 months house arrest and $250 court costs and $1,000 restitution.
The government said that I stood outside of the building shouting, "Go, go, go," to encourage people to go inside of the building. They also said I stood outside of the building shouting, take it," to encourage the crowd to take a shield from a police officer. None of those things were true, and they did not happen. I did not do those things. I signed the government's false statement of my offense because they told me that this was the only way that they would drop the felony charges and give me a misdemeanor plea deal, which to me was the right decision to make.
3 months house arrest in order to pay a $5,000 fine. Strzok says he's recently taken a polygraph to back up his claims and plans to...
The judicial arm of the government to cause egregious harm to these people who they consider to be their political opponents. I'm one of those people. There was nothing honest about my case.
Spent 3 months in federal prison for his role in the January 6th insurrection. Mr. Reader. He ultimately pled guilty, although to this day he says he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
In fear of someone coming after me from the previous administration. So now that Trump's in office, I feel more free to talk about things from that day.
I knew that we would be redeemed.
South Florida native Gina Bisignano says she's waited years for her freedom.
Looking forward to taking a swim in the ocean. I haven't swam in 4 years.
The fathers, the breadwinners, have been taken from them and put in prison unlawfully for many years for the simplest of January 16, 2021. They scooped him up and then they started taking him from prison to prison. Spent 202 days down in the bowels of the D.C. prison. The conditions there are so egregious. He was actually sifting water through a sock. As soon as you start to get communications with your attorneys and your family, they scoop you up and they take you to another prison. You can talk to your family, and you can't possibly, make a defense. And then when you do get your attorneys, you talk to your attorneys, and then they scoop you up and they move you to the prison. All your notes and stuff, they take. So they know exactly what your defense is. It's like playing cards with your opponent looking over your back. What has happened under the Biden regime was so egregious, so anti-American, unconstitutional. They walked all over our Bill of Rights. Thank God President Trump came in here, because not just for our patriots and our families, but for all of America, because if they didn't like you, they would do anything to shut you up. They tried to shut down my businesses. They had the local the state agencies come after my companies. I got a bunch of companies like restaurants. And so they'll stop at nothing to shut you down, and I've lived through it. And
President Trump signed the pardon over 24 hours ago, or coming up on 24 hours ago. Your son is still not out. What reasons have they given you for that, and what do you think is actually going on?
What this is nothing more than this nasty, rotten mayor of this city
that controls these facilities. They're not federal facilities, they're city-run facilities. So what she's doing, because she's all bent out of shape, because they're out, she is doing everything she possibly can to hold up the process and also harm him. My son was assaulted by a lieutenant and 5 other guards last night. He was assaulted, punched. He was sitting in the middle of the quad waiting to get processed and go out. Came in, they handcuffed him, they wrenched his wrists, put him behind him, they punched him, from what I understand. They threw him physically into his cell, and that's where he was. This is a young man who has been pardoned, like everybody else. And so this is how they're treating them. So but this just adds to the damages.
And I did see where I thought was weird, where 2 guys in separate locations trying to push other men to go forward. That I did see, which was really weird. And then for me, I was walking in, I went to the west side. As I was checking in, I actually even said out loud, I was like, hey, is this where they're letting people in? And somebody's like, yeah. And people were going to courting. I actually see there's like, it may be 12 to 18 cops just standing against the wall hanging out. So again, there was no real sense of like this was Pearl Harbor or 9/11, as some Democrats try to say. The people behind me, hey guys, we got to go back the other way, and left. I mean, that was pretty much it, and walked around a little bit, recorded some more, and then walked back to Los Angeles, where I was living at the time, and thought nothing of it. I started seeing raids happening, where people were getting raided. I actually thought, oh well, that's probably some people that broke the glass and maybe fought some cops. I knew I was okay. Like, I recorded a video as I was leaving. I was like, this is the people's house. They would let us in. That was my understanding at the time. I didn't know people were even let in. So for me, I was like, they wouldn't let us in. They kicked us out of the house, which in one moment was like, when the guy said get out, that's what I was in a sense, bothered by. So then, I saw people get raided and didn't think I was going to be on the list because I didn't touch anybody. I complied with police when police even gave me a directive. And then June 10th of 21, I got raided. My house got raided by the FBI.
So that was the first time you were contacted by law enforcement regarding your presence at the Capitol? Yep,
it was a raid to my house, and 15 agents and guns drawn and everything. It was crazy. Yeah, FBI, the first thought that came to my mind was, you have got to be kidding me. Like, no way. I had on. And I was really shocked when I opened a door. We had 2 agents turn their guns right at me. And all I could say, because my dog was, freaking out, was, please don't shoot my dog. And so when they grabbed me and they cuffed me to go outside, I didn't see any of my other roommates, which was my best friend. My 2 godsons, who were 3 and 6 at the time, were there. I saw Bryson, the youngest one, being put in a car by a female agent. Cars were all out in my street. I'm cuffed. The guy's like, I was like, let me see the warrant. He's like, this isn't an arrest. This isn't an arrest. It's just a search warrant. I'm like, well, I need to talk to my lawyer. He goes, this is not what it is. I'm like, well, let me see the warrant. He goes, you will get it to you after we clear the house. And I'm just thinking to myself, 2 things, like, I can't believe this is happening. And because I know I didn't do anything that would warrant a raid and armed U.S. agents at my house. Like, it just didn't. It was very confusing. It didn't match what anything that I did, let alone to a level like that. Like, it just didn't match. It was just time.
So, what did they do? What followed?
Well, they took me outside. They were inside. I guess, clearing the house, as they said. As we went inside, then they took me to my back patio to question me. The other agents were pulling stuff out of my room, stuff that I still haven't gotten back to this day. So at this point, it's going to go on 4 years, and I haven't gotten never charged at the time and wasn't arrested. It was just a search warrant, as they said. It took my computer, my cell phone, my flash drives, my external hard drives, my journals that I used when I was in program. It's just like, and my MAGA hat that I mentioned earlier. So they took all those things because they were like, oh, well, the MAGA hat, we saw you on CCTV. That's what, I don't understand how that's evidence, but it is what it is. And so I was just when I was talking to him, I was expressing how confused and how frustrating this is, that this isn't America. My family comes from a place where my grandfather was killed by disagreeing with the people in power there. So that's the country I come from. And to come to America and now seeing, because you disagree with the current group that was in charge, that they will come to your house, knowing you didn't do anything violent with guns in your face like that, Reeves, that just, no one can truly get it unless they're in there. And to know that they're able to muster that type of force against you is really disheartening. It can be extremely frightening. I was on a no-flight list, or terror flight list. I don't know, how do you call it? So I was being harassed every time I flew. In that instance where I got arrested on November 30th, I kept saying over and over, because they took me and they wouldn't tell me initially what my charges were. I'm like, first I was like, why are you arresting me? And they go, you know why? I go, no, you're going to tell me why you're taking me away from my wife right now. And then some guy shouted, January 6th. I'm like, I didn't do anything. So they did it like this on purpose to want me to basically caught me with my pants down, if you will. So we didn't have any way to be ready to just walk in. And they let other people, mind you, they let other people turn themselves in, but they didn't let me turn myself in. And they came at me with this full force. And when we got to the jail, I found out that I was charged with 4 misdemeanors. So a raid on my house, 3 years of harassment every time I flew, and then ripped away from my wife, and an arrest on a tarmac for misdemeanors. I was raided. The LA Times, the Daily Mail, the Chicago Tribune, because I grew up in the Midwest, everyone wrote about this, Netflix actor raided. So from a entertainment standpoint, from the liberal media, I was done. There was going to be little to any chance to salvage my career over there.
With January 6th was, I think, kind of unique in some respects. During my time incarcerated, I realized then my arrest was bigger than me. I decided to give this to God, to use however he wanted, and he did. He used it. Eventually, one of my charges was taken to the Supreme Court of the United States, which was the charge of obstruction of Congress, which we felt was unjust. God used that, I think, to help not only myself, but more so other people. And I'm very glad that he used us for that. My wife, as much or more than I did. My wife has been a rock through this whole thing. I can't even imagine going through this. This looks like it was a complete nightmare, and it kind of was for most of it. But there are times where I wouldn't have given up for anything. I believe it was providence. It needed to happen. America needed to see the evil and the deceit within our government. I was merely one person there. I am no one special. All this happened because of God's providence, and any good that came out of it, all that glory. We were just pawns in this, and I was more than happy to be a. My wife and I were now trying to get back up on our feet. I know things will work out. Financially, this was an extreme hardship. It continues to be an extreme hardship. We're ready for that battle. Wake up every day, we're happy. We're happy we're together. We just take each problem that comes 8 seconds at a time. That's it.
Jubilant, exciting day. Gathering together with other patriots that really love our country.
On January 6th, 2021, surveillance cameras captured the 71-year-old walking in and out, spending 10 minutes inside the Capitol. The FBI arrested her in Denver on 4 misdemeanor charges, all tied to unlawfully entering a restricted building. But after 3 days of deliberation, a jury in D.C. found her guilty on all 4 charges, a decision she is already coming to terms with.
I all of a sudden realized that, hey, God has a better plan. If I'm convicted like I am, then God has a different story.